These are Kenya's northern rangelands, dry, dusty, and incredibly vast.
This is Daniel Plofker, a reporter for Germany's DW-TV, Deutsche Welle, where I used to work, by the way, and he's about to mislead you repeatedly, starting with what could be dismissed as a harmless mistake, if not for the pattern established throughout the piece. The opening falsehood, calling carbon credits a lucrative natural resource, as if they're just lying around to be scooped up by greedy polluters instead of created through careful, deliberate human activity.
Ground zero in the scramble for a new and lucrative natural resource.
But that's just the beginning. The bigger distortions come later.
One that is tearing communities apart. Carbon offsets have become big business here. Western tech companies like Netflix and Meta have invested millions in a project aimed at sucking CO2 from the atmosphere by controlling where and when livestock can graze. Now, fences and weapons are proliferating across this fragile landscape.
You can be kidnapped or even killed.
Sounds ominous. Fences and weapons where freedom used to reign. Kidnappings, killings.
And why are Kenya's carbon dealers so keen on keeping journalists and researchers away?
I won't unpack every misleading claim in this episode because there are just too many of them. I mean, these are just from the opening seconds of a 20-minute piece. I'll get to more in the next episode, and I encourage you to watch the DW documentary and compare its claims to reality, because the facts tell a very different story. Mohammed Shibia knows the facts. He runs the Northern Rangelands Trust Carbon Program. DW never contacted him, and neither did the Oakland Institute, Survival International, or the activist and propagandist Simon Council, who wrote a lot of survival's material. That fence you just heard about, it exists, but it's not part of the Carbon Project. In fact, the Carbon Project has no fences. Shibia showed me the visitor log from that day.
So they arrived, and then they wanted to proceed to the rhino sanctuary. And then they were told, look here, it's quite unsafe to ride on a motorbike in the sanctuary.
In the rhino sanctuary?
In the rhino sanctuary. Exactly. And also very remote. So they were asked if they could get a vehicle, is still fine. But they didn't introduce themselves as journalists. Mm-hmm. They introduced themselves as students who are just interested to visit a sanctuary. And then they have vehicles there, but they ask if they could hire the vehicle. Then the manager and the people present, they say, the vehicle is for community uses. And if it's for community purpose, it's okay, but not for student on just, visit. And it's not for work. Mm-hmm. So it's not authorized. Right. And instead, a manager mentioned to them that it's okay. There are several other aspects they can still learn at the office. And so he called upon one of the just rangers to help them, how they collect data, what is inside there, what cameras, there are some other wildlife camera traps, there are live photos, They were all introduced to all those technologies, and then they were told, okay, however, you didn't really make it physically. We hope you have seen photos, live videos, and you have seen also our rhinos, even if it's in black and white. We hope you are happy. Then they say they're happy and they left.
Basically, as you'll hear on today's show, the DW team visited a rhino sanctuary that the community voted to create. It's outside the project area, but the DW team intentionally called it part of the project. Now, the video shows them in a truck, but the log says they showed up on motorcycles and were turned away. Not because they were reporters or researchers, as they claim, but the opposite. For safety reasons, and because they failed to identify themselves as reporters or researchers. The project area is massive, and I've been able to wander around at will. So have most of the people I know who come to visit the area. Now, the exact circumstances are moot because they weren't denied access to the project area. They were standing in the project area, being denied access to a place where wild rhinos roam. This isn't journalism. It's the kind of theatrics we expect from right-wing propaganda outfits like Project Veritas and the Center for Medical Progress. Not sure if you're familiar with them, but they've created a lot of confusion in the United States. Both have produced fake exposés on everyone from NPR to Acorn to Planned Parenthood, using selective editing to imply that Acorn promotes sex trafficking, NPR was funded by the Muslim Brotherhood, and Planned Parenthood was selling baby parts. Now, let's fast forward in the DW piece.
Solomon Limpatu does not know what a carbon credit is. He tells us he's never heard of them. But he says his father was shot dead for grazing the family's animals in the wrong place, and that he watched it happen.
Basi mimi sijui basi hapo ni mbaya kuingiza mbuzi ng'ombe. So mimi nikaenda tu mimi sijui kitu. Sijui hapa ni mbaya nini nikaingiza tu ng'ombe. Mimi nilikuwa tunafuatana na ng'ombe bora yake tu mimi niko tu kwa ng'ombe. Sijui nilikuwa mdogo. So vile buda msee alikuja akakuta ng'ombe siko huko. So kukimbia kurudisha hiyo side ya si hawataki. Basi wale wakafika before hata waongee basi ni kwa nini hivi iliingiza ajali kapigwa mzee basi ikaenda tu.
His mother, No Kilelu, has had to grapple with the consequences ever since.
Wala nako na ino kwa bago somni kata ne chinyi anya si na dwa ke meto na ramata kada yo na ge kunyi ngara nya kada amana de ne tinga ngo jit na menya naso agi yana da kwa ko na ke na ngo jit na nya naso.
For this family, armed enforcement of the NRT's grazing regime has changed their lives forever. Allegations of lethal force against herders is nothing new. Human rights organizations and researchers have documented dozens of extrajudicial killings of pastoralists in conservation areas throughout Kenya's north, including on territory managed by the NRT.
Many people have been killed because you are arming people without the regulation of government. These armed rangers, for example, prevent community members from grazing in certain areas. And we have people who have to, leave their cultural sites, their graves, their cultural practices, and have to move to other areas.
The problem? All of the so-called extrajudicial killings that he's referring to were either hallucinated by the Oakland Institute, they didn't happen at all, or more often they have no discernible connection to the Carbon Project, and that's according to Kanyinki Sena. He was the first African chairperson of the United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues, and he investigated the allegations in 2022. His investigation was funded by the Nature Conservancy, which helped get the project off the ground. I'll offer more details on Sena's report and the DW errors in my next episode. But for now, let's just unpack this tragic death. The sad reality, as you'll hear in this and the next episode, is there is a lot of cattle rustling in this area and has been for centuries. And there is also intermittent intertribal violence. NRT has ironically set up peace committees, while Survival International has done no such thing. Back in 2017, the Kenyan National Police responded to a case of trespassing and cattle theft in Ilengwesi Conservancy. Now that's important because the Ilengwesi Conservancy is not part of the Carbon Project. DW wrongly claims the killing happened in Sera or Lekurtut Conservancy. It didn't. According to police reports, there was a shootout between police officers, not rangers, and the people accused of trespassing. After the incident, a man named Letenua Limpatu was found dead. But not only was this outside the project area, it involved no NRT rangers or conservancy staff. What's more, two family members, Solomon and Nulakile Limpatu, say they never spoke to the reporter, who just recycled old footage that they say was deceptively edited. In fact, on January 13th, 2025, Letenewa's brother, Peter Limpatu, issued a public statement. Here's what he said.
We, the family of the late Letenewa Limpatu, are deeply saddened and disappointed by the misleading clips circulating online regarding the tragic loss of our family member in 2017. This incident, painful as it was, arose from a conflict between communities over grazing areas. During the confrontation, the Kenyan National Police intervened and, regrettably, used force, which led to my brother's untimely death. As a family, we thoroughly followed up on this incident and have since come to terms with the findings. We can confirm that no NRT rangers were involved in this matter. The individuals behind this clip are irresponsibly spreading falsehoods that distort the truth and dishonor our family's grief. It is particularly disheartening to see my nephew, who was 8 years old at the time of his father's passing and not present at the incident, being used to propagate this false narrative. We urge those creating and sharing this baseless content to stop exploiting our loss for their own agendas. Let us honor the truth, respect the memory of the departed, and refrain from causing unnecessary pain to the family and community.
I can go on, but today's show isn't about lies, it's about truth. This is the first of 2 episodes focused on the Northern Rangelands Trust, featuring the voices of people on the front lines of the climate challenge. In this episode, I speak with Mohammed Shibia, who leads the carbon program for NRT, and 2 elders, Peter Lekurtut of the Samburu and Peter Kilesi of the Maasai. For the next episode, I speak with local community members who are challenging a lawsuit against their conservancies. I should point out that I chose not to include random interviews with people who turned out to not really have a good understanding of the project. I wouldn't quote my nephew about carbon finance either, so why include voices that are just as unqualified? This thing is already 2 hours long. Now, you could argue that finding people inside the project area who don't fully understand the project lends credence to critics who say NRT did a poor job of reaching out to the communities. But the people I spoke to say NRT did a great job, but that you're never going to reach everyone in an area so broad and diverse. NRT does acknowledge that it mostly worked through elders in implementing the project and not directly with all community members, and it's been beefing up its community outreach. But I'll let my guests speak for themselves.
Man may be unwittingly changing the world's climate through the waste products of his civilization.
There's a group of us now who are proposing that the Earth has actually entered a new epoch, and that is the Anthropocene.
We know that the enemy is carbon, and we know its ugly face. We should put a big fat price on it, and of course, add to that, drop the subsidies.
So my name is Peter Kilesi. I sit in a oversight committee, carbon oversight committee in Northern Rangelands Carbon Project. Mm-hmm. And I come from Mount Kenya region, that's Naibongas and the Mount Kenya region. Mm-hmm. Yeah, our work is oversight roles in the carbon project.
I'm Peter Lekurtut from Isiolo, the western part of Isiolo town, that's Olonyiro. Samburu by tribe. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you have heard of the Samburu people.
Yeah.
We are livestock herders. Mm-hmm. And historically, we have been moving with our livestock from one place to another. That is originally how we used to keep our livestock. Mm-hmm. Seated here, I'm a member of that oversight committee. Mm-hmm. Elected by the people in that region.
Okay. My name is Mohammed Shibia, Rangeland Carbon Program Director at NRT. Mm-hmm. My main role is help grow carbon projects, both in terms of not just growth but strategy, be it a soil carbon project or any other carbon project pathway that we establish. But now, more so, I'm just focusing on soil carbon removal project, especially the VM0032 methodology. The additionality that we're looking at is we are community members actually. Our work is just technically support them, collect report from them to prove what they are doing is very correct, environmentally, socially acceptable. So, and ensuring that they always get new ideas, new concept on top of the traditional way of the pastoralism that they have established. And therefore, traditionally, they have what they normally have as wetter months, grazing places, drier months, grazing places. But over the several years, those traditional institutions broke down.
Mhm.
And so, each of the community, even here you can see two members of my committee who are here. They belong to different community, but we are almost over 10 tribal groups that are sharing the landscape. And therefore, so when the traditional system became weaker for some communities, others started just settling within a very small space and grazing there, but a typical traditional way. So with the very current project now, what the project is trying to help is communities to talk together, to share this landscape, and ensuring that at least a significant part of the land at one particular time is going through the regeneration of the grasses, even if it's just for a season or 2 seasons. A whole season is almost 4 to 6 months, because we have 2 rainy seasons in March, April. Then also we have October, November rain, and so depending on amount of the rain that we receive, almost we can say 3 months wetter months and 3 months dry months. So we have almost 5 to 6 months. So those are the seasons, and now based on those seasons, they plan the livestock movement and allowing these 2 million hectares of land within which the project is being implemented to rest and grow grasses to food. But again, from avoidable degradation concept, which you just mentioned, this is slightly different from the forest. Those brown grasses have to be grazed at one particular time. So within this grazing arrangements, we don't have intensified livestock grazing, especially where we have what is it called? The kind of the grazing we've just mentioned.
The rotational.
We have the rotational.
Yeah, but you don't have the
feedlots. We don't have feedlots, but we have a separate program which runs a concept of the feedlots.
Okay.
What you call ufugaji bora mashinani, UBM. Now UBM follows on that, and so if there is opportunities and possibilities, we have this additional extra modules that actually is delivered, but not within the carbon project. But we are taking it that as just a traditional way of helping pastoralists consider, not just feeding animals, but also feeding animals for markets. Yes. Yeah, so we have that additional program modules, but not exactly under the carbon project. But it's quite exciting to listen. Yes.
Okay, great. And to bring the listener up to speed, before I started recording, we were discussing ways of improving your management of cattle. You said you're looking at intensification, which involves the production of silage near water sources and reducing the amount of land that your cattle use, but not under the carbon project. And you also said the focus of the project itself has been on reviving traditional practices. Now, Survival International claims that NRT came to you and said that traditional practices were killing the landscape. And they hired a so-called expert, this guy named Simon Council. Have you heard of him? I'll loop back to him in a bit, but can you talk about your traditional practices? How do they work, and how do they either align or diverge from what the NRT is implementing?
Traditional grazing plants or practices is something that have been there since we are born.
Okay. What did they involve? What were the traditional grazing practices? Was it similar to rotational grazing, or was it just was it intuitive?
I'm coming to that.
Okay.
Let me explain.
Okay, great.
So as I said, traditional grazing plants were something that have been existing since I was born. And these traditional grazing plants were good and were followed to the tip by our fathers and everyone in the community. They used to work in there's two patterns. There are actually three patterns. There are those grazing within households. There are those grazing plants within during the dry season, and those are grazing plants during the wet season.
Okay.
Right?
Right, yeah.
So during these grazing plants within the homesteads are only grazed for young goats and lambs, not for big herd of goats and cows. Those ones go walk away like 2 or 3 or 4 kilometers away, but not within a kilometer within the homestead, so that the young goats and cows feed and calves can get grass within the homestead because they can't walk long.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
The grazing plants, the wet grazing plants, used to exist just within the homesteads, but not far away from homesteads. Okay. And everyone just they say we all graze. They used to have patterns. They say pattern this side. We all graze this side for a month when it's green.
Okay.
And then after a month, they graze at this side. After another month, they graze on another side. That's to allow grass to grow and have enough feed for the livestock. The third pattern is dry grazing plants. The same livestock within the homesteads have plan B. That's a long way, maybe 4 to 5 kilometers away from homesteads. That no one goes there when it is wet season. Right?
Yeah.
So the grass grow very much, big grass. So and then when they all want to go and if someone goes to a place that, let's say this season we're not grazing here, they get a fine. You get a higot for the elders to.
And this was in the traditional system?
Yes. I'm talking about the traditional system. Before, when you were young.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And so when you take your cows there, we will come as elders and ask you, why did you take your cows to where prohibited by elders? Then immediately, without bargain, you give out a higot as a fine. Right? And they slaughter. And that's what they do every single day. For everyone that goes to places are unwanted. And I remember very well when they go to these dry places, now they find grass so big, and they have two things. Cows used to get sick because of many ticks.
Because of ticks?
Yes. Ticks become so many within those undisturbed.
They live in the tall grass.
Yes,
okay.
Undisturbed areas.
Okay.
So at times when they want to come out, or when the grass are so many, our fathers used to burn the grass to have fresh grass and to kill the ticks.
Okay.
So that's traditional, and it's up to now. It still exists.
Okay.
But at some point, it breaks because of 2 things or 3 things. One, population. Before, people are not so many, and now we are populated. People are so much in traditional and have not respect in traditional, but now Gen Z are in books. So people are in books. Third, young men sometimes lose that respect of elders.
Okay.
So if I tell you not to take cows there, and you see the grass are there, you ask, why don't I take my grass there? And I want my cows to feed. So the young men take cows where it's not wanted. The third thing is competition within the young generation. As a traditional young man, I'm responsible of herding. So when I move to dry season areas, it is me who is responsible. And it will be very wrong if I take my cows to grazing areas and they don't feed well or they get skinny. So once you tell me this area is prohibited and for a certain time, I ask why. I need my cows to feed. I can't follow you. I need my cows to be fat. So he takes there because there's no that respect of the elders. And at times elders are not there. Because we stay at home. Young men go drive the cows to dry grazing areas because at times there are droughts. So they drive cows away where elders are not there. So the young men rule. And then the last factor is the drought. If there's a drought, then no one follow the rule. And that's why I heard him talking about the white ranchers and Matiang, telling people to move out the cows. Yes, they said. Because in our community land, there were no grass. There was a big drought. But in the white ranchers, that's white properties. They have their fences and they do their proper grazing plans, and they have big grass, and they don't have so many livestock as the community. So in their ranches, there are always grass. So outside the white man ranch, it's dry, and you have grass. So the young men come in to feed in the white grass in the white ranches land because they simply don't have grass. So if you tell them to go away, where do I go? They fight you for the cows to survive. So that's the case. So it was not. My thing was telling them to go out because that was a private property. It's now like your car. If I go sit in your car now, what will you do? If I fight you, will go to the police. Kilesi is taking away my car. So that's exactly what happened. So there's no agreement within. So that's exactly what happened, and that's where the traditional rules break at times. But when there's enough grass for everyone, there's rain for everyone, then people tend to follow the rules. We come now here. We as the one implementing carbon project, it is the same system, same community implementing the same grazing plans. But you're only documenting.
What?
Only documenting.
Only documenting, right?
Documenting and reporting as services, as carbon project, but nothing changed. It is the same system, same community, same elders, same people that are implementing the same things. We are only documenting, no difference, no modification, no nothing, right? So when it comes to drought, when the grass are finished within the area, the young men tend to go out of grazing zones when the time is not there, and that's where we get leakages, which are there. So that's how we implement, how we implement the traditional grazings. Yeah. So do you have anything to add?
Did you want to add something?
Yeah. He has almost exhausted what we want to give you. Traditionally, our people had their own system of managing themselves, their own governance. We had a council of elders who manages their land, who manages their livestock, and their decision and the rules and regulations are respected by the community. That if the elders say that this is a particular area that we graze for this particular time, it is respected by all. But now, because of many factors, a lot of education is coming in, a lot of bed development, a lot of other things. We are developing schools, People are now owning their own private land within the community. So the traditional system of the way people were living is changing. That's now the difficulty we are getting in now. But traditionally, people had their own way of respecting their land. They know that for this particular season, this is the area that we graze. This other particular season, this is the area we graze. That is traditionally how they grazed their livestock. And because we had maybe bigger lands by then, because there was no this development, the population was not as big as it is today, so it was easy to manage. But now, because of the growth of population, because of other development, now the land is now reducing day and day. So the conflict that sometimes we see now is because of the land, because of the resources. The resources are limited. There's no that respect people had before. There was that respect before. But now that because of the education, because of the other things, people tend to do their own things. They say that, no, this old man should not give me this guidance. It's against the law. It's against this. So the traditional system of governance is not respected now. For the project now, what the project is doing is only to support, implement the traditional systems we had before. Now that the land is becoming small, how can we manage the smaller resources we have currently, so that the communities, so that the traditional system is in place as before? That's exactly what the project is trying to support the communities to do right now.
Right. So let me rephrase it, just to make sure I understand correctly. So essentially, and that this is pretty much what I saw in the project design document as well, which is that you had these old traditional practices. It was unwritten, but it was generally acknowledged by everybody. The practices fell apart, and what the project is essentially doing is reviving the old practices. And that's the thing. You said reviving. You said it's continuing to exist. Okay.
As it added because I saw the report, as it added fences, because I say you know the ranches we are talking about. So within their conservancy or within the project area, are there fences introduced and the community is told don't go here? Or we also saw they say that they are private rangers. They are called rangers. Yes. They are private rangers that are regulating the community, telling them don't take your animals there.
In the whole project area, common project area, we only have 2 community fences. That's in Ilingwesi and Serra. And it's only put for rhino protection only. There is nowhere else in our community land with a fence to deter anyone going to grazing or anything. It's only managed by the traditional ways and elders and the community by themselves. The fences is general, and it's a requirement by the government that when you have rhinos, you have to protect them to let them not from going away or not letting poachers come in easily. That's only Ilingwesi and Serra. I repeat, Ilingwesi and Serra, no one else. For rhinos only. The rangers are in our conservancies. The rangers are the Kenya police reservists that are there in the conservancies. We, the community, are only helping to pay them, but it's actually the Kenya police reservists. They are under the police, the Kenya police service. They directly report to the OSPD and OCS of the particular area. The conservancies are only keeping them and feeding them and paying them. In northern Kenya, it's prone area for banditry.
For what? Bursary?
Livestock banditry. Banditry, yes. Bandits. Yes. Okay. And before, poaching. Yeah. Right? So the police are the one responsible for all this. But the employee community ranger, communities, scouts, we call them NPR, National Police Reserve, to help them do the same. These guys don't go out without permission of the OCS to work anywhere or do any particular job. either maybe follow the stolen livestock or anti-poaching. Right? Anything to do with livestock grazing plans or even livestock fashions, they don't do it. It's locals who are in charge of all the grazing plans and control of livestock, our community engagements. That is the community themselves and cassava board members and grazing committees. Not rangers. Rangers are not involved in any way. Those guys putting those things there are just putting for their own benefit, trying to kill the project.
Yeah.
I hope I'm clear.
What's that? Sure.
I hope I'm clear.
Very clear, very clear.
All right, I think I can look at how project strengthen the traditional way of grazing or reviving. I think it's just the same thing, but I think revive better. What has been existing and disappeared or ceased to exist, or some are continuing but in a different way or in the same ways. So there are a variety of ways, and I have said each of these communities has established practices and the grazing plans that they have just presented. And without going into each of those grazing plans, I can just simply describe all of them as their traditional grazing patterns. But inside there, it's very interesting. And how here we have two elders, a Maasai, a Samburu. There are common things that they do within their traditional way of things. And there's completely separate thing in terms of direction of movement or livestock. Like, for example, Samburu, they slightly live on in the lowlands than Maasai. They have long range of movement where they are normally you are in the lowlands, and then particular months like some months which you have to travel towards north, Samburu north, all the way. And when they move, they really move. They are like wildebeest. All these are the very old way that actually the last 30 years or so were constrained. But more recently, we are seeing now coming back, because that is tracking resources, because it moves with rainfall and so on. So that is very one thing. And the other thing is, as much as they used to have wet season, dry season grazing planning by elders, 30 years or so, this continue becoming weaker and weaker, and yet it's very critical tool. So project is helping them regularly conduct grazing planning by communities and for the communities. Ours is just asking them, give us the proof that you have done your planning. Like now, March, April they're moving into the wetter months. They have to do anticipatory action. They have their own traditional elders who look into the anticipation of weather and everything. They incorporate all those knowledge and then the science knowledge from our end. And then they come up with their planned livestock movement chart. So it's just adding value to exactly what has been there, but now we are strengthening it. And this is not possible without money, without revenue. So the Carbon Project is now incentivizing that each of the communities members now cannot really excuse themselves. They have revenue to this proper planning. And then when elders do now the planning, they also again engage the bigger fraternity of the herders on their plan, so that now everyone within the community, starting from the village to the conservancy level and to the regional level, understand what the plans they have for that season, because the plan for this probably slightly is amended from the previous one, or even better, because depending on the weather outcome, and their practices from the previous season. That is what determines when, where to feed or take their animals. The other thing is the planning normally starts from the village level to several villages together that share resources, and then to the regional level that involves how far livestock could go in a season. And it can even cover more than 50 kilometers, it's like even 200. Yeah. The other thing is from through the project, we conduct capacity building for community leaders, group dynamics. Elders also have to understand we have Gen Z. They have to really learn the right word to relate with Gen Z. These are their grandchildren, but they are not like the fathers. So relatable words, they have a lot of energy. So how, some people ask, what are we training? This is just the traditional elders. They have art, science of their environment, which is very correct. But there are new things we are learning because Gen Zs are teaching us. In fact, even the ones who have not, they are establishing their art around herding. They are also causing more demands, asking for more demands in their space to make decisions, in their space to live. So this is new phenomena. It's not like the way my father has handled me in my generation. But now Gen Z wants something else. If you say that without reason and without relatable words, they will break the rule. But if they become terms and related to what is happening on the ground, they have energy. They are the leaders of now and the future as well. So, these are some of the things, group dynamics. We continue building our training modules for the elders and as well as for the bigger population. Here they call Morans, the Gen Z, because they're in that age class. Okay. Yeah. The other thing is that we really look at is exchange tours, because these communities, they're at different levels of understanding and sharing resources. And then most interesting is other than just planned livestock movement, there are places that grasses will not come back anytime soon. The grass seeds in the soil are long lost. So even if you live without grazing, it's just my bald hair here, grasses will not come back. Somebody has to help grasses reach here and boost the acceleration to growth, and then grasses now from there they can spread themselves. So they are looking, how they can convert their traditional way to boost these grasses. One is boma placement, where animals sleep. Okay. In the traditional way, bomas or animal places to sleep is always there. But now they strategically place where grasses have not lived, have lived there but disappeared. Because animals, when they go out, come back, and after they leave the boma, the sleeping place, then they will leave behind manure, they leave behind trampling. So instead of now cows becoming a problem, cows become engineer of their own land, then become a regenerative approach. And also from the settlement aspect that they already explained, scientifically people say that when pastoral is settled, grasses is the number one to disappear. But now we have women going out, bringing grasses and spreading. So when they do spread, they help facilitate grass dispersal. So they help grasses to grow. So all these are very old way of doing things, which used to work, but for some reason broke down. And so the communities are just reviving this very old way of doing things to tackle the new phenomena that as a result of all this fluctuation of rain, people settling in one place, technologies coming in, and people are less interested in the mobile life. But now they are using just those old way of doing things to improve their environment, especially the rangelands. Yeah, that is how they are just generally helping back their own old way of doing things to come and help and continue their living. Yeah, there's no new thing, but of course science is there. As more data is coming in, we keep on improving what they do.
Yeah, that's so interesting, and that's so similar. We were talking on the way in Brazil among the indigenous people. If you look at what the agriculture they used to practice, it's what we would now call agroforestry. In the U.S., we call it regenerative agriculture, and that's what they were practicing in Brazil thousands of years ago, and that all disappeared when the Europeans showed up and kind of chased them away. Now they've got new science telling them that the old methods work. And it's kind of interesting that indigenous people are learning their own traditions from from scientists who come from the West. Can you talk a little bit about these workshops and the capacity building that you went through? Like, what was that like? Because you participated in the group dynamics and everything, right?
There's a lot of engagements been going on and still going on up to now. Every time we have any issue that's concerning a project or community, we do something called FPIC prayer. That's FPIC, right? We go to the communities, we speak to them on how things are done. We have set up way of reaching them. We have the conservancies, we have the grazing committees, we have the zonal meetings, and we have elders, we have stakeholders, so we engage them, all of them. Like a recent one we did, it's about 264 meetings. Oscar. Yeah.
264 meetings.
Yes, across the project area. When we were delivering how the carbon works. Just last year. So we have very good structures, way of reaching the community and talking to them, and deliver all the messages and getting feedback from them. Yes.
How was the project presented to you? How did you first learn about it? Do you remember, when the project, because the project started in 2011, how did people say, hey, we're going to do the project?
The project was presented to us through NRT engagement. Through the conservancies, board meetings, and the information went down to the community. We were told that there's a carbon project, and we were taken to workshops and educated on how the carbon project will run, and how it will be implemented with the communities, and the benefit it will bring. And so everyone was like, how? It's something new, and something that's, how possible is this? And after a series of meetings within every conservancy, there were about 14 conservancies. So the board members were told, and the communities barazas were held, and everyone was explained on how this project will work. So everyone agreed. All the community members agreed, the community members, the stakeholders, and every single person in the community. And they asked the chairperson of the conservancy to agree and sign the agreement, the implementation agreement. So it's actually delivered. It's too long. It's so many years back. I remember I was there, and we were told about it, and we had several barazas. Although it was not intensive as now. Because by then there was no these FPIC processes. The constitution was not like we must do FPIC, we must tell the community. This FPIC thing came recently. Yeah. It was just put in 2016 and 2010 constitution. So no. So before then, but it was not intensive. But as we grew, when we started implementing the project, so many other meetings were held within at the conservancy level to the community level, and also NRT project team.
Right. Yeah. So engagement was there from the start. You were invited in. You were asked to. It wasn't like it was thrust on you. I mean, formal FPIC came later, but there was engagement from the very beginning.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. And did you want us to comment, either of you guys, before I ask another question, or?
Thank you so much. I think I will rather a little bit speak to constraint as well, in the history of the project introduction to the community members. 2009 to 2010, it was a research moment within community conservancies of Kalama, Westgate, just to establish jointly with the community members how carbon sequestration is possible with a grazing plan implementation and the carbon cycle, and how much on a degraded area just after some moment, if you just, with livestock improvement, how much grasses could come back and how much work those grasses could do to fix or to sequester carbon and store in the soil. So the very first, 3 soil conservancies just participated in the research. Then from when the concept was proven, then it was research dissemination, exchange tour, learning tour. So most of the community members from the project area traveled to Kalama, Westgate to learn. And in fact, even up today, so quite a number of conservancies now are coming up better than even the Kalama and Westgate. But the historical safari to Kalama, Westgate to learn about wonders that this traditional way with just little modification could bring. I think all of them are beneficiaries. I don't know. Chairman, have you been traveling to Kalama? I think you everyone, actually the community members. In fact, some are even now challenging and asking, we have our own established practices bringing back grasses and carbon. Why Kalama and Westgate community not coming here? And this established safaris is always going there, but this is very established practices, like community of practices. The other thing is, this 2012, 2013 is the project inception. We have to be very sincere to the reality of community engagement. Chairman is very right. The formal FPIC and the whole process came with new regulation, new constitutions. But of course, community, indigenous, they used to have their own way of engagement. They used to meet under the trees. They used to meet in the ceremonies talking about this project. But more so, resourcing, this kind of engagement isn't that really cheap and easy. So the project initially from 2012 all the way to 2017, actually until it was confirmed, 2021. It used to run on the donor funds. And so resourcing community meetings was hugely constrained. But communities have been doing that within their traditional setup. And as Chairman said, today it's more comprehensive and intensive than ever before. Every single year from 2021, we've been having multiple engagement for FPIC involving household members. Here's what we spend. It's almost over $600,000 US. And that is still not enough. When actually Steve was talking about innovation around education, what was running through my thinking and my mind was, it could be an innovation that I was not thinking about CBC. I was thinking CBC for my pastoralists. How much did they understand about this project? How else can we improve to deliver information to them? My mom in the village, I come from here, sincerely speaking, as much as I'm her son, she can get stuff, complexity involved in the project as I can. So it's always difficult because we are dealing with a large area, high literacy level, remoteness, and all these are the real thing. But despite all this, we used to have conservancy board meetings, which my elder here spoke to. We used to have annual general meeting for conservancies, and we used to have a leadership summit, and connection, and also ensuring that conservancy board training and awareness always touch, because these are community leaders which are elected, and every 3 years or so, the new members come in. So these socialization components actually were continued. The other thing is we spoke already several aspects of the grazing related meetings, planning, and in all those, why they have to do that? Because they were told sooner or later there is carbon project, because they started signing agreement as way back as 2013 there, because they are told sooner or later these good practices that we are doing on top of our pastoralism will generate credits and will be sold and will bring home money. So patience was really long, because this, was a new methodology to be developed. 10 years actually in developing the methodology.
Yeah.
Patience ran out.
Right.
2018, actually, people say enough is enough. We just have to load the tools. This thing won't work. Then that was the point at which the concept of relying on the donor was revised. And then our market strategy, native, came in with a right financial muscle to push the project through the verification of the methodology, project mechanisms, operations. And that is how the project was confirmed in 2021 to issue credits. So that is the up and down of community engagement, and the project survival almost died in 2018.
Yeah.
And then revived again back on its foot. And then this is where it is today. Without knowing the history it has come through, today we know it's as one of the largest working and delivering projects.
Right.
Yeah, the other thing is the whole process. This question is one question that has been seriously critiqued. How project was introduced to community members. Given the level of complexity, as I said, with information dissemination, here, technology we have is only very informal, word of mouth, which is so more or less like bush telegram. If I whisper to my colleague here next to me, by the time I will tell him that this interview is amazing. By the time it will reach at your point, it's saying this interview is confusing.
The grapevine, yes.
Yes. These are the channels that we are relying on, but we have come up with also what we call discussion-led training, where we use animation, cartoons, which adopt the very traditional way of living. One time elephant talking, one time cows talking, talking about the land. These are all the oral stories from various communities here.
Right.
And then, those elders giving their stories, how these rangelands could change. And then living elders like us now can say, yes, this change happened when we were seeing. So we are using all this animation, screening in the villages, in the night, in the very flank places. We have a group which is actually, they are called Cartoon, but Cartoon is the tool they are using to initiate learning and discussion. So that is where, every village is actually reached. So we have really several ways of reaching community members, including the OXAM, the ongoing community conservancy, ongoing community and stakeholder awareness meeting on the project, just to teach them how the project works, with agreements were engaged, what revenues come through, and also collect their grievances, their concern about their project. And all those were done by local communities from the same residents, so that the message is always home, but also remain with them. If they have even question later on, they always refer there. You can imagine we are still having problem, but on an annual basis, we are directly almost like 35,000 pastoralists are directly reached.
Mhm.
But message is still struggling.
Yeah.
That is what we are really trying. But when people come in, people ask, involve, that indigenous communities are pushed out in their disadvantage. This is not very true, because we are struggling to educate them. They are here. I'm one of them. The elder here and several others. But in terms of incentive, in terms of benefit, it's the community getting more. And I think if this project, God forbid, stops today, it's the community losing.
This story plays out again and again, and it goes all the way back to the very first project I worked on, the Sururi Forest Carbon Project. A community comes together to use carbon finance to improve their lives. They push through incredible challenges, and just when they start making progress, along come the ideologues, misrepresenting their work, twisting the facts, and undermining everything these communities have built. Now, I'm not here to pretend these projects are delivering paradise on earth. I'm not here to pretend they're perfect, because nothing is. I'm here to help you understand the real story, what these projects face, how they work, what they can do, what they can't do, as well as how they have evolved and how they continue to evolve with new data, new technologies, and new findings. So if you value hearing directly from the people on the front lines of the climate fight, voices often drowned out or distorted by outfits like the Oakland Institute, Survival International, Greenpeace, and The Guardian, you can help me help them to tell their stories. Just head over to patreon.com/Bionic Planet. That's patreon.com/Bionic Planet. Bionic Planet, they're all one word, no dots or dashes. Every bit helps bring you more unfiltered, in-depth reporting from the front lines of the climate challenge. You can also help by giving me an honest 5-star review on whichever podcatcher you access me through. That helps, because the more stars I get, the more ears I get. And the more ears I get, the more minds we can reach. And we must reach hundreds of millions of minds if we're to meet the climate challenge. We can do it if we all work together. When you started to hear these critiques, like from the Oakland Institute, claiming that the project was running around basically killing people, and I mean, it was pretty egregious what they were claiming. Do you remember when you first heard these critiques, these allegations, and how did you feel about that? Yeah, you guys are laughing, but we laughed at Trump, and we should have countered him better.
We had these things several days. We had so many days, and it's just shocking, because we're in a country that there's a rule of law, and I think if I slap you, not killing, only slap you, there's consequences for that. You'll go report the police, and I'll be caught, and I'll be jailed for slapping, only slapping, not killing. In Kenya, when you kill someone, that's a huge crime. Either by what, anything, even hanging, it's a crime. And in common project, I don't think there's any single place or anyone reported that the project people or project is killing people.
The Oakland Institute claimed that, but then Professor Sana, you know him? He did it. He investigated. He found zero evidence.
Yes.
No one has ever found evidence. In fact,
Yes.
he found absolute proof that it didn't happen. But when you hear these allegations,
allegation involving death is a motive. And the allegation involve community members. And how it was presented like a force from outside pushing for deaths of individuals. So it's an emotive thing. It's a very big concern to the communities and everyone in this space. So the very first thing, when this came out, communities convened and asking themselves, what happened? Where is this information coming from? Because no one, as chairman is saying, has ever registered a report with the police, with the traditional structures. But of course, we also know whoever reporting and raising allegation also has people to speak to. So these people are also further reached out, but this evidence cannot be established. And so we can't really say ignored, but SANA was actually, even our donors were very fast to convene for a meeting, and then they agreed to launch an independent investigation. And equally, several other smaller groups also launched the same, and so nobody established evidence. And the same with the more recent DW story. So when journalists meet, people on the ground, journalists have their also space to talk to people. They have a space, to convert and redirect conversation. What individuals from this community are speaking and what is reporting is sometimes the same and sometimes different, but sincerely speaking is an emotive thing, but we cannot trace with the communities, from the individuals and from all the authorities, because the government, other than the police, we have national government representatives on the ground, the chiefs, the assistant chiefs. As Peter said, Kilesi said, if someone is killed, that is a very serious thing, or even short, or even infringed benefits or infringed rights, even to speak. So it's a sad, emotive thing, but it's just baseless. There is no evidence, and it's not anything verifiable, and only leaves everyone in this space with frustration.
And in addition, there is also the same line. There's also this thing going around about raping, with our rangers raping. This is actually the same way that the report is being reported. It's a falsehood. The rangers no one rapes. There's no even one single case reported anywhere to the police or to the community or someone verify that one ranger raped. It's nothing. Go around anywhere, ask. It's nothing. So there's that rape allegation and killing allegation are just falseful and just something to tarnish the project and conservancy's names.
Maybe if I can add on what they have said. We come from these communities. The three of us, we come from these communities, the Samburus, the Turkanas, the Maasai, and we live in that region. If maybe a project is there to harm our people, we are the first people to say no. We don't know this project. But you see, what should be understood is that these communities, the Samburus, the Turkana, the Maasai, the Rangelands, these are communities living with these animals, and they live that, if I may say, that hostile life. of cattle rustling here and there. So there was a lot of conflict even before this project. And when maybe this herders go and invade other communities, the government must come in, the forces must come in. Even the reserve, the police reserve must come in to track these now criminals. If maybe one is killed in that area and another person have a negative motive or want to dirty the project, then he says it's the project which does this, which is not true. Because we know some killings which happened when people had their own conflict. The conflict between the Samburus and the Maasai, and I know of one person who was killed. Then I don't know whether that's the national or whoever goes out and say that it's the project, which is not true at all. So people don't understand what the project does in that area. For us who come from this area, we know the benefit that the people are getting. These people have been here since independence, and the government, if I may say so, have left these people without any development, may it be schools, may it be roads, may it be hospitals. But today, because of this project, we have seen a lot of schools developing in that area, a lot of health centers will develop in that area because of the project. But somebody somewhere wants to tarnish the name of the project, taking now a negative maybe activity which is taking place in that area, going to tarnish the name of the project.
Yes, and in addition, again, you can ask ourselves, why did the government put so many police reserve in northern Kenya? Why? Simply because there is cattle rustling.
Right.
It's just too high. It's a business going on in the country. It's just too much. Even today, where I come from, we had 2 raids at night.
Okay.
Today, every single day there's raids. Criminal comes shooting with guns. Okay, there are people coming from a neighboring community, right? So and these guys, and it did not start today. It has been there for more than when I was a young boy. There was raids. People come with guns and raid. It's still continuing up to now. It will not stop. And the project was not there since when the NPR were there or the scouts are within the conservancies. The conservancies are just formed just the other day and support the community, right? First respondents from within the police. So if a ranger kills or shoots a raider, that's not about the project.
Right.
No, it's raiding. That's a police. That's part of his work when given the gun by the police.
Right.
So people are just tarnishing the name and putting it upside down, saying that it's the rangers who are shooting the project and killing. No, it's not about the grass. It's not about anything. It's about raids. People coming, kill children, kill women, kill men, and take their livestock.
You know, our ranger, when they say is community employed rangers, and so not all rangers also have guns. It's just community scout, and not all conservancies actually have guns because it's just depending on how government decides to issue. NRT has no control, has no say. If NRT wants conservancy community scout to hand in to government guns, has no even authority. But this authority is with the government, National Police Service, and they are licensed. They are monitored monthly. They normally go through the vetting process. They normally take the training for wildlife sighting monitoring. They go through the Kenya Wildlife Service training, and they also have kind of a logbook, the numbers and everything that they normally report and record. And also, most important, they come from the same community, and they don't report to NRT because they are employed. They are there for various reasons. There are those communities that they have income generating activities, and they just convert their community scouts because the government could not provide enough security on the ground, and if it is there, it's not directly available. And then the last thing is the historical part and the geographical space we live in. We are coming from a very antagonistic communities that they can just choose to love each other. You really be wondering. And then all of a sudden, they start again fighting to the blood. You can even consider that friendship has not ever existed between the two communities. And all of a sudden, again, they are together. And sometimes these are all, induced politically, not because of the grasses, and several other just misunderstanding, incitements. So we are coming from this very ugly past. It's getting better, but it has not left us. And these places we call hotspot, there are some communities that actually this thing is very common. Like, for example, the border of Samburu, Isiolo, and Laikipia County, it's very common. Places like Sierra Biliko is extremely serious. And also even here around Isiolo, these are where the line where two different communities are living. And it's their traditional way of living, actually. It's their way of, a young man cannot marry until he brings home animal from a stealing event. Steve, how can you continue with that? Yeah? And then now a project is coming in. When this guy, he must show the power, strength, and ability to marry by demonstrating stolen animals. Right. Yes.
And these guys, the rangers reports in two lines. For the security issues and use of guns, they directly report the police service, the OCS and the OSPD. They only report to the conservancy manager when they are reporting about the conservancy manager and KWS, when they are reporting about the wildlife movements, wildlife maybe poaching, and anything else. Any use of gun or ammunition, it must get permission from the Kenya Police Service. Not NRT, not conservancies. Take it to the bank. And that's a true story. Yes.
Yeah. And, talking about these, the cattle rustling, that was what happened with the DW report, right? They had this child who said that he saw his father killed, and it turned out there was, as I understand, that there was no conclusion. There was a rustling involved. Basically, they said there was rustling involved. They don't know if the man who was killed was caught in the crossfire. They don't know if he was an innocent victim, but they said he was clearly not. It had nothing to do with the project, right? Did you want to comment on that or not? I mean, you don't have to if you don't want to.
That incident happened. It's true, it's happened. But it was basically a raid. There was a raid in between. There was a raid and there's fire contact. Right? And there's nothing like. So it's normal. No, it's normal. It's normal banditary thing. Cut raids. So what do you have to follow there? Nothing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's from his neighborhood.
Okay.
This thing, as I said, is very emotive.
Yeah.
I get concerned. I made my own effort to reach out to the family. And good other thing is uncle or the brother to the deceased is one of my Carbon Council members. I just approached us, sincerely speaking. Just tell me, this is very emotive. Just tell me what happened. I made my effort just to go there, just ask. Then he said, there was death that was confirmed, and then asked how. Exchange of fire when in the neighborhood animals were raided police also involved. And he spoke about stray bullet.
Yeah.
In fact, the deceased was not even at the scene, far from the place. I think that was what I got. Yeah, and then it was back to some years in time, and we could not really relate to the project, but of course the death happened. That is the very sad part.
As he said, our people here, today we are friends, tomorrow we are enemies. That's exactly what happened even that day. There was a misunderstanding between communities. It's nothing about the project. So it was during that time, during the raids. That time is because the Samburus tended to raid more of Maasai than what the Maasai do to the Samburus. So that's exactly what happened, and that it was the cause of the death. Not project, not grass, not anything. It was just because of misunderstanding between this community and the other community.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And another thing, going back to the DW report, he was standing outside of a fence in the DW report. What was that fence? I know. Just, yeah.
Many of these things are very emotive. It's safe to be very honest. When I had that, DW, I received DW report a few hours like this, 4 o'clock. Community member shared with me, said, really amazing thing here. Can you quickly check this? It was only viewed by 17, it only received 17 views. I saw the view growing, getting 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, 40,000, hitting 100 mark point, getting plus. It was Friday, exactly time like this. Immediately in the night, I reached out to people, all these people we are speaking this case to. By morning hours, I could not get people in Sarah, and then this is my conversation with the people in Sarah. I hope my phone is not disappointing me, and that this is still there. This is the visitor's book that they cite now. I will give you a whole story. What happened?
Okay. There's Alexandra Williams, Daniel Plafkin, who was the reporter.
Yes.
Mario Kuraki and Timothy Kania, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So each of these characters have played a role. So they arrived at Sarah. This is I was not there. I'm now reporting. Manager, the conservancy manager, rangers, all the staff, they had a monthly meeting, and so they are all present. So they arrived on the motorbike. So they arrived, and then they wanted to proceed to the rhino sanctuary. And then they were told, look here, it's quite unsafe to ride on a motorbike in the sanctuary.
In the rhino sanctuary.
In the rhino sanctuary.
Because there's rhinos running around in there.
Exactly.
Right.
And also very remote. So they were asked if they could get a vehicle, is still fine. But they didn't introduce themselves as journalists. They introduced themselves as students who are just interested to visit a sanctuary. And then they have vehicles there, but they ask if they could hire the vehicle. Then the manager and the people present, they say, the vehicle is for community uses. And if it's for community purpose, it's okay, but not for student on just, visit. And it's not for work. So it's not authorized.
Right.
And instead, a manager mentioned to them that it's okay. There are several other aspects they can still learn at the office. And so he called upon one of the just rangers to help them, how they collect data, what is inside there, what cameras, there are some other wildlife camera traps, there are live photos, They were all introduced to all those technologies, and then they were told, okay, however, you didn't really make it physically. We hope you have seen photos, live videos, and you have seen also our rhinos, even if it's in black and white. We hope you are happy. Then they said they're happy and they left. And so when they left, they flew drone. And so they saw drone. And then they said, where's the source of the drone? They thought it could be a military in their neighborhood. They could not really guess. Actually, it's after the video, they noticed, all right, it's that drone. So now coming back to the real thing, the question you asked. Truly speaking, fence exist. As Chairman said, Peter Kilesi said, we have 2 fences. I think communities with fences, he missed one. One is Sarah, the one which is covered in the DW story. Then we have another one in the Ibunga Central. Ilingwesi. Yes, the elephant fence. Yes, it's not in Ilingwesi, it's in Ibunga Central. Yes. Owners of the fence are the communities, and it's the communities' wish to keep the fence, and it's not when actually they consented to keep rhinos for their own wish and for their own economic diversification on their land by community land committees. For KWS to accept, to approve or authorize rhinos on a community land, there are some specific, guideline? Requirements to be met. Those requirements, one is fencing. I think it's about 100 kilometers, I don't know, but something like that. But it's a significant, good enough to keep their rhinos. But it's the community arrangement. That Sarah is within the project area, but the area enclosed is not part of the project. And indeed, if you look at that video, the ranger was in the office, somebody's hand was showing something. Truly speaking, in the very old time, that was grazing place for dry season or wet season. But it was the community wish, and they have met their own social environmental safeguard to convert that as per their requirements. So, as much as it has existed once as a grazing area, it was now voluntarily converted by the same community to grazing land. So NRT is not involved, is not engaged, only ensuring that environmental, social safeguards are met in the interest of the community, but also in the interest of endangered species which is there. So that is what happened. So the fence is there, it's a Sarah, Rhino Sanctuary fence, but in terms of when to graze inside there, when not to graze, and that was the decision of the community there. But credits from that place is not counted. So whether it exists or it isn't adds no value to the project.
There's nothing new. And there's also a third fence that I forgot to mention earlier. It's in Ibunga. In Ibungas, we have very high human-wildlife conflicts. And you have 2 major animals. Actually, we have elephants that kills people every single month. We have lions that kills animals, livestock. Lions and hyenas and leopards. So in one of the measures, KWS or the community put the traps to catch the leopards, lions, and hyenas, and then they take it away to other conservancies or other places. But for the elephants, we have those settlement areas where people are settled. So NRT thought, how can he, or Conservancy, how can he mitigate the elephant conflict within the area settlements in each Conservancy? So we requested, as community, we requested a fence. NRT gave us a fence, about 30 kilometers fence, square, that's fence around the community settlement. But it's a long fence that only deter elephants not to go into settlements. For the camels, they have a door to go through. But human being can pass through. It's a long fence. It's about 7 feet. So cows can go under. People can go under. But elephants cannot only go in. So it's not something that's harmful or detect people from grazing or anything.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Another question. According to Survival International, they can come and this project makes it so that they can come and take your cattle away. They can physically come and take it away from you. They can take it away. I think the exact word was they can come and take it away from your family. That's what Survival International says. Any response when you read that? I mean, I can go find it for you. I can when you read something like that, what do you think? When Survival International says, I can let me find it. I'll Google it and see if I can. They've got a fact sheet here.
Yeah, the difficult thing here we are dealing with is one that is treating the whole project as a stranger, new, introduced thing by somebody outsider. Here we are talking about community-owned, led project, and that they implement activities. And on NRC side, we ask them to give us proof that they have implemented project. So this is a completely different angle of looking at the project implementation. So when now it is considered as a forceful eviction and snatching, it means somebody forceful with a lot of power more than the community is implementing their project and forcing people to adopt a practice. But reality is it's a voluntary grazing plan implementation. And if, under many circumstances, that planned grazing management has not existed, we have circumstances where communities have earned annual credits up to $1 million. We also have circumstances that they have earned even less than 100,000. These are all a fact that actually survival is not speaking to. So because they are not just making money, and then when the survival is saying indigenous people, NRT is selling credits from their land, then here we are talking about communities producing credits, and on their behalf, based on the signed agreement, we look for market. You see, these are really completely different way of. We are speaking about the project, but how we talk and how we approach is different.
Yes. So, what is this?
I'm going to read just a couple of the comments. Listen to this. This is their FAQ, the frequently asked questions, where they explain. We're going to tell you how the project works. The basis of this project is that NRT claims that the traditional forms of grazing have been causing degradation of the soil, that the communities have been overgrazing, and this has been causing reductions in the amount of carbon that's stored in the conservancies in the soils, in the grasses, and so on. In order to introduce what NRT calls this new planned rotational grazing, they have to take control, essentially, of everybody's animals, and they have to put them under the control of NRT-employed grazing managers that move the cattle around very carefully from place to place, week by week, and month by month. You're laughing. This is what they're claiming is their FAQ. This is what they send to reporters. The reporters read this. and think that this is how the project works. And it goes on. So this would potentially cause a huge change in the way the people of northern Kenya inside the NRT conservancies are able to manage their own cattle or not be able to manage their own cattle. One of the biggest concerns is that under the NRT carbon project, all cattle are supposed to stay inside the conservancies. They are not allowed to go out into other areas. It is not being enforced very much now, but it could be enforced at some point, and this would obviously have a major impact if prevented cattle being moved to areas during drought where there is still vegetation available. Then, for example, south to Mount Kenya. So NRT doesn't want that happening anymore, and that could be extremely dangerous if the traditional movement and migration of livestock herds is prevented. And you're all laughing, so I mean, so
yeah, I'm laughing because how people report forcefully only for the damage of the project.
Oh, the court case. Did you say the court case or
no? Damage of the project.
Damage to the project. Okay.
Damage of the project. Right. There's nothing like as I said before, we are following traditional ways of grazing plants, and we are following it from the community level. The communities themselves, or through the project, have employed grazing coordinators. Their work is not follow the cows, or their work is preventing cows not to go in.
Right.
Their work is only to report monthly basis, because it's a requirement that we report the activity done within every conservancy monthly for us to generate the carbon project.
Right.
The carbon.
Yeah.
So their work is only reporting, and yes, surely they work around the conservancy, but not preventing, but reporting.
Right.
In every zone or in every community, how the project implemented was done by the grazing committees, but nothing like following or preventing cows. Yes.
Yeah, and the only, as I understand correctly, the only enforcement is if the agreements are broken, no carbon money flows, right? There's no one is physically going in, right? Is that correct, or? If people are grazing out of turn, then it can impact the amount of credits that are awarded, right? So but that's the only enforcement that's involved.
There's something called a leakage.
Leakage, yes.
Okay, leakage is a circumstance situation where livestock leave the project area and move out, and or places there they could potentially cause degradation there. I think it's slightly different from this one. This is just within their project area. So within their project area, if grazing planning and implementation is not strong enough and good enough, that is not just enough to say, but we still have accompanying carbon, soil carbon and the grasses. So the combination, in years of insufficient credits, then what it means is the community get less projects. Less credits. Right. So you are very correct. But enforcement is not happening. I think what sarcastically driving Chairman here is the very fact that we only ask them to give us evidence, because we will read additional. We have from monitoring, reporting, verification routines, we have a couple of ways to confirm planned grazing management happens, because one data that we look at is the satellite data. But when we see improved versus non-improvement for the season or the year, then additionally we'll ask, what proof do they have to claim the improvement? Because the improvement can even happen without improvement in management. So they have to give additional information to make a claim to the improved areas. So those activities are managed and implemented by community members, and they make proper claims to earn credits for that. So in this case, Survival has refused to talk. I wrote to them. They refused to talk to me. They refused to talk. You wrote CPOC Community Project.
They refused to talk to you.
They refused to talk.
And over the years, they've refused to answer my questions too.
Yes. Okay. So if maybe they speak to us, maybe they could understand us better. But
well, my advice, if you do speak to them, make sure you have witnesses. I don't, you know what I mean? Record everything. If you do speak to them, make sure that you record it as well, so that they can't take it out of context. Because, when people demonstrate bad faith, I don't really trust them anymore.
Okay. So there is really this circumstance situation we normally go through. Our elders here, some of this thing is very emotional for them and doesn't really make sense because it's not NRC. Survival really surprises me.
Yeah.
In the whole of this NRT, I am the one person who is in charge of the livestock movement, supporting all this satellite reading. I can't, in fact, if you speak to any of the community, the staff here, they will refer you to me.
Yeah.
Because no one else is controlling this livestock, because we wonder how this young gentleman can manage millions of herders. But anyway, it's this circumstance, but there is one other thing here. Animals coming from outside.
Yeah.
We get, communities need help. Just go read through this. This is what I just received from a community living outside the project area.
Okay, let me
yesterday. It's handwritten, and I hope you can really see.
This is the director, Rangeland Trust. Okay, so this is just addressed to you. We, the undersigned elders of something location is
Sericho.
It says
no, Iresaboru. Yeah, I know
okay,
that.
In
Iresaboru.
Word, let's see. To inform you that our rangeland area here in grazing up. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get to the meat of it here. They explain where they are, and also the battleground of the community rights due to the forceful intrusion or invasion by the communities of both. Okay.
Our counties.
Okay.
We are now.
Yeah, we're now
undertaking series of peace meetings with the communities
involved
to restore order accordingly.
Let me say I lost the accordingly. Okay, yeah.
We therefore humbly request for your assistance with above fuel.
With above what?
Fuel. Vehicle fuel.
Okay.
Above
fuel, okay.
Request
yes.
or assistance. Thank you in advance.
So okay, then in Israel then.
Yeah, then they're just requesting for 200 liters of fuel
to
help them remain mobile. They move from one place to another, and these are traditional elders. What we call data, most likely the community we are meeting speaks about this kind of arrangement. These are elders. So this is what basically the project is doing. The project is just helping where they really don't have this incentive, because it requires these elders to be on a vehicle and move. Because if you really don't have a fuel and you don't have a vehicle, you cannot reach here to make this constructive discussion.
Right. Yeah.
And these are the kind of things or activities that a project facilitate. Because you see, these are from Wajir, Garissa. These are the outside. Actually, they are not even. These ones are outside their project, but also the community, which is actually also raising, is outside their project area. But I know in their traditional, as I say, they can move. Pastoralists are very mobile. Why we care about this and start helping them is to help them. By the time we can't manage them far, they will all come all the way up to here. It's YOLO. So that is why when the others are coming from the very far east, then we help them, talk together, graze together, save, for the season in anticipation that it's getting dry and drier as La Nina is setting in. So we help them so that everyone in his place, people share together, cooperate in the livestock movement, and then help, manage this livestock at the landscape level. So this does not really mean NRT is causing a problem. Actually, NRT is facilitating community to live better, manage their own way of very traditional living. That's what I really wanted to say. This is what has just come through yesterday.
And it's a kind of a typical, it's a routine request. It's the kind of thing that all the time.
Like where I come from. I come from community land. And it's clear in the Community Land Act that within every set of our community, there must be plans, what do you call them? No. Plans kubwa ya conservancy. Management plans. They have a big name. That a plan that shows in your land, this is where you are doing grazing, this is where you are doing settlement, this is where you are doing town, this is water, or this is water, this water source, this is schools. You have to give to these plans. What do you call these plans? No, there's a name, I'll find out. No, I'll find out the name. So it's in the law in Kenya that we have to do all these things in community land where you live to show where you do your activities. And now within these activities, this is where you also include your grazing zones. There are zones within that plan, and grazing plans again are shown in these zones. So it's not something that we are doing now. And when the government were doing the Community Land Act, they are referring to the local knowledge. What do you normally do? We do grazing plans. We do plants, wet grazing plants. So that's why they want to incorporate everything incorporated. It's in the act that it incorporates all the plants within the activities within the land. So it's just nothing. This is all these claims from South International are just lying. I don't know where they're coming from. I don't know what intention they have, because they just want to kill the project. So, and in every activity or organization that want to develop or want to come and work within the community, this is what they want to see. Do you have these plans? Do you have these plans within their community? What do we do? Where do we do? Or if you want to build a school, you have to show a document approved by the community that this zone A want a school, and it's true. It is in the plan. You just can't come and do a school because you want a school, and the donor cannot do, or county governments cannot do a school within that land if it's not in the community plan. So this is something that is in the law. It's not us doing it. It's not us. And these plans are coming from the community, not us. Yes. Yeah. Not NRT, not even conservancies. We are only helping implement. The conservancies are helping implement these activities through the conservancies and common project. So we are also having the same plans from the community and help implement and report. This is what you guys provided. So are you following? Show us activities you are doing every month. That's all. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I think livestock movement. There's no modification from old practices, but they're just improving, reviving what has been worked, but what community is established quite difficult to revive. And so this is a disinformation which actually is spread, but people within the project area can't speak to what they are doing because the whole participation is voluntary and participatory, because they're their own, anyway, they have to do it for pastoralism purpose, for a better living, for good health, good rangelands, for posterity. It's only that just in case what we have seen in the last 20 years ago, the demands that come with this kind of planning require incentives.
Land use plan.
Yes. So we still have, constraints to incentivize people to expedite their own way of living, but it's not coming with any constraint. And if they are to have constraints, they're the ones who runs their plans. They're the ones who decide where to take their animals. NRT has no control. This thing is just getting too difficult to be understood, because the moment somebody is, a reporter is just handling that it's NRT managing people's livestock, then the narrative is changing, and they are giving powers which is exceptionally huge to an individual to control population, which even the government cannot really achieve. And anyway, there is no incentive for anyone, including government, to put people in that kind of constraint environment. So I think it's just a misinformation. And within the project, what we communities implementing this project are doing, for example, they have the ongoing community engagement and stakeholder awareness, the OXAM, our elders here spoke to, where stakeholders, including non-governmental, governmental organization, all meet with the communities and understanding what the project is and how it works. But also every season, as I said, they always have wet, dry season planning on how livestock will move. And the ones who have insufficient pasture will always make effort and do a courtesy call to their neighbors. And they normally do it in the traditional way of life. They go scout, and when they see pasture before the animals come, they ask for where are you settling. This thing is not just because of the project, but also, as he said, there are tick-borne diseases, there are corridors of animal predation, and location of water and everything, because this information are the ones who are on the ground who can tell. Or even, as we say, they have their own problem of stealing from each other. So if somebody they know pastoralists have good knowledge, and their local authorities or the authority is fully aware and informed who is from within the community and outside the community. They know. So when the people from outside come, they have to get the knowledge about the landscape from the people who are already living there, or else they will even go and get into the route of stealing. They can't even sleep one night peaceful. So not just for the benefit of the business that they consult, but for their own survival, because from where they are living, they must know where water is. So it's the one who are on the ground are the ones to help. And that is what now the project is just, the incentive, the money is with them, not even with us. So when his community plans to travel, the community just discuss among themselves, depending on the type and the kind of the spending plan they have established. They facilitate themselves. We don't even facilitate from here. It's with them. So where is NRC coming in? All these things, they are just disinformation in the public. Yeah.
Can we get back to the money flowing to the communities? Because that's also an issue. DW had some numbers that I think they took directly from the survival report. And the numbers that they have contradict what I saw in the project documents. And I'm also aware that NRT is in the middle of updating its benefit sharing, and costs are supposed to be coming down as we figure this out. But can you tell me how the money is currently divided?
For the revenue flow for we are still dealing with the historical credits. So the revenue flow, first revenue flow was in 2022. About $14.6 million came through. Out of the $14.6 million for the project administration, we only spent $800,000, $0.8 million. So that means over $13 million directly transferred to communities. And even the 800, the project at least we have to manage. And that 800 or 0.8 million I'm referring to, it's not NRT executive or senior management handling the budget portfolio. It's at my level and the community representative, because the project needs include auditing, include support to the community meetings. Basically, each of the communities have contributed to that 800, because these are joint activities that they cannot implement at their level. Then we hold the funds in a pool from which we can help and support conservancies to proceed, be it governance for rangelands and conservancy, be it stakeholder government engagement. We have to spend funds to produce credit. So if it is that, when you translate it to a percent, the $0.8 million is, when you translate it, it's roughly about that 3%. This year, again, from the partial sale of the revenue from 2017-2020 vintage, we have received, was it 13.6 or 13.3 million $? $13.6 million $. We have a lot of other commitment this time around, including transition of the project to the new regulations, where we have to do engagement for FPIC. We have several other compliances to meet. It's not 800, but about $1.2 million out of the 13.6. The rest, as we speak, significant part has been transferred to the conservancies, but there is a 60% which is always held back in the spirit that community decide how to spend, not the council members. That is now for participation. So when the community sits, collectively agree on the priorities, then based on that, again, not NRT. These are the people oversight by community now being referred to by survival maybe as NRT staff. So that once they ensure the compliance process and procedures are met, then they release the funds to the community based on their priorities. So this is how it works. I don't know 1.2 is how much, but of course going forward with the new regulation, there again community are engaged in the contractual and negotiation term with our marketer. So community has placed a desired level, at least in not anything less than 50% of the proceed, but roughly they really wanted to have a desired 60%. 60% currently with an extremely poor price on voluntary carbon market is not really that easy. And on an average, again, on good year, they can only produce about 1 million credits. The other years, it's even very far low. So hopefully, if we can sell at $16 a unit on majority credits, we can easily hit it to the 60% for the community. But all other factors held constant. We are negotiating, which also community is part of this negotiation, to up to 53-54%, and that is revenue from the 2021 vintage period.
For the use of funds, we don't ask for permission from NRT or whoever. It is us, the community representatives, who sit and disperse the funds according to community's priorities. If they decide that they want to build a school, if they decide that they want to put their funds into buying livestock, because there are some who do that, because during droughts, sometimes the livestock are wiped out and they do restocking. So if they feel that our funds go to restocking so that we add more livestock, it is us who decide, not NRT.
Anything else you wanted to add, or do you think we hit the important?
Yes, I have a question for you.
Okay.
For them. We are very frustrated people in this space. International media, which, either belong to pro or against the climate change mitigation strategies. And so we have those who have already taken side and then call everything scam, and they look for a small 1, 2, 3 negative ideas, and they don't want to speak to the real project implementers. Sometimes they go several kilometers out of the project and speak to members of the community. And so we really have this high level of disinformation. However, we are doing everything possible to deliver information. So this is really a problem for our project to establish and deliver the high carbon, high level integrity carbon credit.
Okay, and that wraps up today's episode. It's a long one, I know. Thanks for sticking with me. It's actually got a second part that won't be as long, and both of these episodes are companion pieces to an article in Quantum Commodity Intelligence, and I'll link to that in the show notes. So until next time, I'm Steve Zwick in Nairobi. Thanks for listening.